On this day in history, we remember the remarkable individuals who shaped our world. Welcome to Who Died Today in History, where we honor their legacies. From artists to leaders, their impact lives on. If you find their stories meaningful, like, subscribe, and hit the bell to stay connected. Omar Sharif, the Egyptian actor of global acclaim, passed away on July 10, 2015, in Cairo from a heart attack at the age of 83. His death, though natural, came after a period of declining health marked by Alzheimer's disease, which had already begun to dim the once dazzling charisma of a man who had captivated audiences for decades. His passing signified not just the end of a remarkable personal journey, but also the fading of a cinematic era in which actors from the Arab world briefly stepped into global stardom. Sharif's rise in the 1960s reflected a complex time of cultural cross-pollination. In a Cold War world divided by ideology and geography, his role as Sharif Ali in Lawrence of Arabia, 1962, made him an international icon, an Arab actor playing a dignified and powerful figure in a Western epic. He later cemented his fame with Dr. Zhivago, 1965, where he portrayed the poetic Russian physician torn by love and revolution. Sharif defied expectations. Fluent in multiple languages and effortlessly cosmopolitan, he became a symbol of East meeting West during a tense geopolitical era. The circumstances of his death, peaceful but preceded by cognitive decline, were in sharp contrast to his passionate on-screen presence. As Alzheimer's clouded his memory, the world reflected on the ironies of a life lived so vividly, yet concluding in the slow erasure of identity. His illness brought attention to aging in public life, especially for those whose legacies are tied to performance and persona. The immediate reaction to Sharif's death was one of global mourning and celebration. In Egypt, he was remembered as a national treasure. In the West, as a charming bridge between cultures. His passing rekindled interest in classic cinema and inspired retrospectives about the fleeting nature of fame and the transcendent power of storytelling. Omar Sharif's legacy lives on in film, but also in the broader narrative of identity and belonging. He remains a powerful figure in the discourse around Arab representation in Western media, still too rare, yet deeply necessary. His image endures not just in celluloid but in cultural memory, museum exhibitions, and academic studies of global cinema. In the end, Sharif's death reminds us of how powerfully an artist can shape the perceptions of entire cultures, and how memory, art, and death are forever intertwined in the human attempt to understand greatness. Byron Berlin, one of America's most influential fiddle players, passed away on July 10, 2021, at the age of 77, due to complications following a stroke. His death, though natural, marked the loss of a crucial link between traditional American folk music and modern bluegrass innovation. A three-time national fiddle champion, Berlin's life and death reflect the enduring cultural value of preserving musical heritage while pushing its boundaries into new terrain. Berlin's death came at a time when traditional American music, particularly bluegrass and country roots, was experiencing a renaissance. As a performer, composer, and bandleader, Berlin brought the fiddle to audiences who might otherwise have dismissed it as a relic of the past. His collaborations with musical legends, from Bill Monroe and the Flying Burrito Brothers to Bob Dylan and the Rolling Stones, highlighted his versatility and willingness to cross genres. The fact that his passing was mourned not only in Nashville but across international folk communities underscores his broad appeal. The immediate consequence of his death was a wave of tribute performances and remembrances that celebrated his role in shaping American roots music. His Oklahoma-based Double Stop Fiddle Shop, which he co-founded and rebuilt after a devastating fire in 2019, became a symbolic gathering point for fans and fellow musicians after his death. The community he helped nurture through concerts, workshops, and jams reflected a grassroots commitment to cultural continuity, a value especially vital in an era increasingly dominated by digital and mass-produced entertainment. Berlin's legacy lives not in political upheaval or global fame, but in the powerful, quiet way his music built bridges across generations. His death reminds us that not all impactful departures are loud or dramatic. Some shift the trajectory of history by influencing the emotional and artistic language we pass on. Like so many great folk artists, Berlin told stories without words, channeling the soul of rural America and giving voice to its joys and sorrows. We immortalize figures like Byron Berlin through recordings, festivals, and oral tradition. Each time a fiddle plays a tune he popularized or a young musician learns from his arrangements, his spirit endures. In this way, his passing becomes part of the ongoing melody of memory, a testament to how art can preserve identity far beyond an artist's final note. Jim Boutton, the former Major League Baseball pitcher and outspoken author, passed away on July 10, 2019 at the age of 80 from complications related to cerebral amyloid angiopathy, a condition that affects the brain's blood vessels. His death was natural, but the impact of his life and the controversy that followed his most famous work continued to stir conversations long after the headlines faded. Boutton was not just a ball player, he was a whistleblower in a sport deeply wedded to its traditions. His landmark 1970 book Ball 4 shattered the idyllic mythos of baseball's golden era. In it, he revealed the behind-the-scenes culture of professional baseball, the drinking, womanizing, and locker room politics that players were expected to keep quiet. His honesty earned him both admiration and ire. Many within the baseball establishment viewed Boutton as a traitor, and he was largely blacklisted from the baseball community for decades. His death came at a time when American sports were reckoning with transparency, player rights, and mental health, a conversation Boutton helped initiate decades earlier. In this way, his passing reflected the evolving values of an era in which authenticity and vulnerability were becoming more celebrated than stoic silence. The immediate consequence of Boutton's death was a revival of appreciation for Ball 4 and his broader contributions to sports journalism. Many younger fans, writers, and athletes paid tribute to his courage in challenging a powerful institution. Boutton's story proved that the pen could be mightier than the bat, even in a game where silence had long been the norm. His death didn't necessarily shift the course of baseball history, but it solidified his place as a cultural disruptor whose legacy influenced how we understand the humanity behind the heroes. He reminded the public that athletes are not just mythic figures, but flawed, complex individuals. In reflecting on Jim Boutton's death, we are reminded of how memory and legacy can be shaped as much by truth-telling as by triumph. We immortalize figures like Boutton through documentaries, articles, and the enduring relevance of their words. His life and death offer a lesson in courage, the courage to speak truth, even when it breaks the rules of the game. In doing so, Boutton secured a place not just in sports history, but in the broader cultural narrative of honesty, rebellion, and reform. Valentina Corteese, the celebrated Italian actress whose career bridged the golden ages of both European and American cinema, passed away on July 10, 2019, at the age of 96 from natural causes. Her death marked the quiet end of an era shaped by elegance, resilience, and artistic integrity. While her departure did not shock the world, it invited reflection on a life lived in devotion to performance, and a time when cinema was seen not only as entertainment, but as a refined craft. Corteese rose to prominence in post-war Italy, a period marked by cultural rebirth and cinematic innovation. She became known internationally through her work in Hollywood and Europe, starring in films like The Barefoot Contessa, 1954, and Day for Night, 1973, the latter earning her an Academy Award nomination. Her collaboration with directors such as François Truffaut and Michelangelo Antonioni placed her within the core of mid-century film artistry. The natural circumstances of her death, peaceful and at an advanced age, stand in contrast to many of the turbulent tales that define Hollywood legends. In an age increasingly obsessed with celebrity tragedy and sensational headlines, Corteese's passing was a reminder of an older, quieter kind of stardom, one based more on craft than controversy. Her dignity in life and death reflected the values of a bygone cinematic tradition: discipline, subtlety, and emotional depth. The immediate consequences of her passing were seen in tributes from film institutions across Europe, particularly in Italy and France, where retrospectives of her work were revived. While her death did not redirect the trajectory of history, it sparked renewed appreciation for an era of filmmaking often overshadowed by modern spectacle. Younger audiences rediscovered her poise, and critics revisited her nuanced performances, especially her self-aware, vulnerable turn in Day for Night, where she played an aging diva grappling with memory and relevance, a performance now seen as eerily prophetic. Valentina Corteese's legacy underscores humanity's complex relationship with mortality and memory. Her passing invites reflection on how art can preserve the subtleties of a life long after it ends. We immortalize her not just through streaming platforms and film archives, but through the emotion she left etched on screen. In an age racing toward the future, Corteese's departure reminds us that timelessness lies not in fame, but in authenticity. Her life stands as a quiet testament to the enduring grace of true artistry. El Cid died in 1099 of natural causes in Valencia, Spain. His death marked the end of a life steeped in legend, warfare, and shifting loyalties during the Reconquista, a centuries-long struggle between Christian and Muslim powers on the Iberian Peninsula. While his passing did not come amid the battlefield fury for which he was known, it carried immense symbolic weight in a time when Christian Spain was trying to consolidate its identity through conquest and religious unity. El Cid's final years were spent ruling the city of Valencia, which he had taken from Muslim control in 1094. As both a Christian knight and a former mercenary for Muslim rulers, El Cid embodied the complex political and cultural entanglements of medieval Spain. His death came at a time of fragile Christian rule in Valencia, and his absence destabilized the region. Within 3 years of his passing, Valencia was recaptured by the Almoravids, forcing his widow, Jimena, to abandon the city. Thus, while El Cid's life was defined by strategic triumphs, his death underscored the precarious nature of Christian dominance in Spain at the time. Legend holds that after El Cid died, his body was dressed in armor, mounted on his horse Babieca, and sent into battle one last time to inspire his troops. Though apocryphal, this image has endured, highlighting how his legacy was deliberately mythologized to serve the larger narrative of Christian heroism. Such tales illustrate the medieval values of honor, martial courage, and divine destiny, qualities El Cid came to personify in Spanish lore. The consequences of El Cid's death were not limited to the battlefield. His life inspired the epic poem El Cantar de Mio Cid, considered one of the foundational texts of Spanish literature. This literary immortalization turned Rodrigo Díaz into more than a historical figure. He became a cultural symbol of Spanish valor, loyalty, and perseverance. His story has since been adapted into paintings, operas, and films, further blurring the line between man and myth. In contemplating El Cid's death, we see how power and mortality are intertwined in the crafting of national identity. Through legend, literature, and commemoration, societies elevate certain deaths to serve as moral and patriotic touchstones. El Cid's enduring presence reminds us that how we die, and how we are remembered, can shape the memory of a people for generations. Roger Rees, the Welsh-born actor and director known for his sophisticated performances on stage and screen, died of brain cancer on July 10, 2015, at the age of 71. His passing was peaceful but poignant, marking the loss of a deeply respected artist who brought intellectual nuance and emotional depth to every role he inhabited. While his death did not dominate headlines globally, it reverberated through the theater and television communities where his impact had been profound and enduring. Rees rose to fame with his Tony Award-winning portrayal of the title role in The Life and Adventures of Nicholas Nickleby, 1982, a Royal Shakespeare Company production that exemplified the renaissance of literary adaptations on the stage. His transition into American television, most notably as the charming yet snobbish Robin Colcord in Cheers, showcased his versatility and transatlantic appeal during a time when British actors were increasingly making inroads into American pop culture. Rees also became a staple on Broadway, later directing productions such as Peter and the Starcatcher, blending traditional storytelling with modern theatrical innovation. His death from brain cancer, a natural but cruelly relentless illness, mirrored the quiet but deeply human struggle many artists face later in life, the tension between their passion for performance and the limitations of the body. Even as his health declined, Rees continued working, performing in The Visit on Broadway until just weeks before his passing. This dedication reflected the values of a generation of performers for whom the stage was not merely a career, but a calling. The immediate consequences of his death were heartfelt tributes from theater institutions such as the RSC and Broadway League, who hailed him as a bridge between classical tradition and contemporary storytelling. His loss was deeply felt among colleagues and fans who admired his wit, grace, and unyielding commitment to his craft. Rees's legacy is preserved not only through recorded performances and accolades, but through the lives of younger artists he mentored and inspired. His story exemplifies how mortality, when approached with dignity and artistic integrity, can deepen one's legacy rather than diminish it. We commemorate such figures through revivals of their work, through tribute performances, and through the written word, ensuring that the light they brought to the stage continues to shine long after the final curtain has fallen. The Roman Emperor Hadrian died of natural causes on July 10, 138 CE, at the age of 62, after years of deteriorating health, possibly due to heart disease or dropsy. His death, though not violent, was marked by immense complexity, not least because of the way it reflected the tensions of imperial succession, the philosophical identity of the empire, and the personal solitude of power in Rome's golden age. Hadrian's reign was characterized not by aggressive expansion, but by consolidation and stabilization. He famously abandoned Trajan's territorial gains in Mesopotamia, and instead focused on fortifying the empire's frontiers, most notably through the construction of Hadrian's Wall in Britain. His death came at a time when Rome was stable but deeply reliant on carefully planned succession, a challenge that Hadrian attempted to navigate by adopting a successor, Antoninus Pius, and requiring him to adopt Marcus Aurelius and Lucius Verus in turn. This dynastic foresight ensured a smooth transition, avoiding the civil wars that had so often plagued the empire upon the death of an emperor. However, Hadrian's final years were bitter. Isolated and often described as melancholic, he withdrew from public life and became increasingly unpopular. Despite his immense contributions to architecture, administration, and law, many senators despised him. He even requested suicide at one point, which was denied. His ashes were placed in a mausoleum that he had built for himself, now the Castel Sant'Angelo, signaling a conscious effort to be remembered in grand architectural form echoing the Egyptian and Hellenistic traditions he admired. Hadrian's death did not cause immediate shockwaves across the Roman world, but it solidified the Pax Romana he helped preserve. His emphasis on stability, cultural integration, and centralized authority would deeply influence his successors, particularly the philosophically inclined Marcus Aurelius. Over time, Hadrian's image evolved. Once a figure of political ambivalence, he became admired as a philosopher king, an enlightened autocrat who bridged the worlds of Greece and Rome. The memory of Hadrian endures in the monuments he left behind, in the administrative reforms that shaped later Roman governance, and in the cultural ideal of the wise ruler. His death and legacy invite reflection on how power can be wielded with restraint, how emperors craft their own remembrance, and how humanity uses death not only to mourn, but to mythologize. Through architecture, biography, and imperial cult, Hadrian, like so many great rulers, became more than a man. He became an enduring symbol of Rome itself,